Thanks. Let me bring in now Democratic Congresswoman Karen Bass of California, a member of the Judiciary Committee and the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
And let me start with this. Right now, what is the latest communication now between your committee and the Justice Department? Have they responded to the chairman's letter, to your understanding?
No, not to my understanding. They haven't responded yet. But we're waiting for them to respond, and we expect for them to give us the entire report and the underlying evidence. That's really the only appropriate thing to do right now.
What happens if they don't do that by your April 2nd deadline?
Well, I imagine that the leadership will decide to issue subpoenas. Now, we haven't crossed that bridge yet because we are hoping that they will act in good faith, but that's certainly a vehicle that we could use. Moving to subpoenas.
Yeah. Can you give me a sense? I know there was a caucus meeting with Democrats today. I know you were only able to be in a little bit because you're coming here talking with us. But can you give me a sense of what went down there, of the feeling inside the Democratic Party now, particularly as you have reports that Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib is circulating a letter that is still talking impeachment?
Well, I haven't seen her letter, but I will tell you very easily that overwhelmingly the sentiment is we need to see all of the information. There needs to be transparency. And remember, the Mueller investigation was looking at a very narrow issue. You know that he gave several of the cases to other offices of DOJ. There's other issues for us to provide oversight and investigation of. There's the whole issue of corruption, abuse of power, obstruction of justice. There's many, many, many more places to go. This is just the first milestone.
Fair to say, though, Congresswoman, based on that answer, that you will not be signing on to Rashida Tlaib's letter?
No, I mean, I have to see what her letter is. I mean,
okay.
I'm a person that believes that, again, along with the speaker, if there's overwhelming evidence, then sure, we should go there. But I also don't want to see us go there knowing that it will not be successful in the Senate at all.
Former President Obama had a bit of a party last night for Nancy Pelosi. He spoke with freshman Democrats, and the Washington Post quotes one person summarizing his remarks as saying that you guys, Democrats, should not be afraid of big, bold ideas, but also need to think in the nitty-gritty about how those big, bold ideas will work, and critically, how you will pay for them. Do you agree with that message, and do you think it's resonating with some of the more progressive freshman members of your caucus?
Well, I'm certainly waiting to hear more about what happened in that meeting. And what I hope happened was that the president really inspired them. I love the idea of saying you need to talk about and think about bold ideas, but I'm also practical. I want to know how those bold ideas are going to be implemented. So I'm looking forward to talking to my freshman colleagues and finding more out about what happened last night.
Talking about former President Obama, before I let you go, I've got to get your reaction to the news this morning. We know the Trump administration is now fighting in court to take down all of the Affordable Care Act, not just certain provisions of it. And I'd like to get your reaction to that.
I mean, I just think it's completely absurd. And the idea that you want to take pre-existing condition coverage from people, the caps, all of those things that I know save lives. I used to work in the medical field. I worked in the emergency room. I saw people come in at the end of their life because they didn't have the ability to provide coverage. Pre-existing conditions applies to everyone, not just people without insurance. And after you hit a certain age, everyone has a pre-existing condition. So why in the world the Trump administration would want to cancel out the Affordable Care Act is beyond me.
That's something we're talking more about later in the show. Congresswoman Karen Bass, thank you for being on.